Hey guys, tonight we begin a journey unlike any other, not across lands or oceans, but through time, and straight into the final moments of history's most unforgettable figures. Not all deaths are created equal. Some fade quietly, others explode in a blaze of absurdity, drama, or defiance. These are the exits that make you blink twice, lean in closer, and whisper, "Wait, what?" From warriors who walked into fire rather than surrender, to kings who turned their bodies into laboratories, to inventors who, quite tragically, became the victims of their own brilliance. Tonight, we aren't just talking about death. We're exploring the bizarre, the ironic, and the beautifully ridiculous ways in which some people left the stage before you get too comfortable. Go ahead and like this video if you enjoy a quieter corner of history where strange facts meet gentle storytelling, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. There's something soothing about knowing we're all falling asleep together, scattered across the globe. Now, go ahead and dim the lights, turn on that bedside fan, tuck yourself in, and let's wander through the peculiar final acts of human history. Let's begin with a man who might have survived anything, except his own genius. His name was Mithridates VI, but around here, we'll just call him Mithridates the Unkillable, king of Pontus, scholar, polyglot, and a man so paranoid, he began to train his body like it was going to war with death itself. To be fair, being paranoid wasn't a flaw back then. If you were a monarch in the 1st century BVC, you were one bad goblet of wine away from becoming a footnote in someone else's legacy. Poison wasn't just a method, it was an art, a favored party trick, and it could be slipped into anything: your wine, your stew, your morning honeyed fixed. His own Mithridates made a decision. If poison was the weapon of cowards, he would become the man it couldn't touch. He began dosing himself bit by bit with the very toxins that had ended kings for centuries. A whisper of hemlock, a dusting of arsenic, a soft kiss of belladonna, day after day, week after week, building tolerance like a mad alchemist locked in a private war with fate. And it worked. Not only did he survive, he thrived. He walked through his palace with the smug certainty of a man who could bite a scorpion and burp politely afterward. His royal physicians even created an antidote from his blood, a potion so legendary it became known as Mithridatum, a cure all so potent medieval doctors were still chasing its recipe 1,000 years later. Mithridates didn't fear poison anymore. He didn't respect it. He looked it in the eye and asked for seconds. But while he was busy conquering death molecule by molecule, another empire was rising. Rome. And Rome didn't care about his experiments. They wanted territory, obedience, silence. War came bloody, brutal, and unrelenting, and eventually, Mithridates found himself cornered, surrounded by enemies, betrayed by his own blood, and staring down the final page of his story. But he had a plan. He reached for his old companion, his trusted mix of poisons, the very thing he'd used to defy death for years. He drank it calmly, like a man slipping into a warm bath, like he'd done it 1,000 times. But this time, nothing happened. No cold, sweat, and no shudder, and no peace. The poison passed through him like water through stone. He had made himself immune. He had outplayed the Reaper, and now the Reaper was late for his cue. Can you imagine it? The gates crashing, the enemy screaming, the throne room crumbling around him. And there he stood, poison-proof, prideful, and stuck, like a fireproof match, like a candle that wouldn't burn. He turned, looked to one of his mercenaries, and gave a nod. All right. Plan BN. Do it manually. And just like that, sword made flesh. And the king who'd conquered chemistry felt the old-fashioned way by steeled by hand by one of the most ironically human ends a man like him could have. Sometimes, death doesn't care how clever you are. It's not impressed by immunity or intellect, or it just waits. And when it wants in, it knocks softly, or with a sword. And so Mithridates the Unkillable became legend, not because he never died, but because he made death work for it. Our next tale begins not in a palace, but in a quiet workshop filled with the hum of invention and the ticking of destiny. Let me introduce you to Franz Reichelt, a man of vision, of ambition, and of very questionable decisions. He wasn't a king. He didn't command armies. He wasn't even trying to change history. All he wanted was to teach humanity how to fly. The year was 1912. The skies were calling to every dreamer, and Franz, a tailor by trade, decided he would become the man who gave flight to the common coat. You heard that right. He believed the future of aviation wasn't in airplanes, but in parachute jackets. Yes,
A wearable parachute, part coat.
part wings, all optimism. He called it a flying suit, and he was so sure of its brilliance that he petitioned the French authorities to let him test it. From the Eiffel Tower at first, he told everyone he'd be using a dummy, that it would be a safe, controlled demonstration. But when the crowd gathered that frosty February morning, France stepped forward wearing the invention himself, gasps, shouts, warnings. But he was determined. He believed in his dream with the pure intensity of a child holding a paper plane to the wind. He climbed the iron tower slowly. The weight of his invention dragging at his shoulders, like fate itself, was tugging him back from the first platform about 187 feet above the ground. He stepped forward. The crowd below held its breath. Cameras rolled. History leaned in. France hesitated for only a moment. Then he jumped, and for a second, just a second, it seemed like it might work. The code bellowed. The air caught, but the wind didn't hold him. The flying suit collapsed like a broken umbrella, and France fell fast, hard, and straight into the cold Parisian ground below. He died on impact. Tragic, yes, foolish, perhaps, but in his fall, there was something strangely beautiful, something poetic. A man who dreamed of flying fell not from failure, but from belief, and in a strange way, he became part of the story of flight. A cautionary tale sewn into the seams of aviation history, because while his suit never soared, his story never fell into silence. Now close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the wind brushing against your face on the Eiffel Tower. Imagine the silence before the jump, the way time must pause just for him, that second in the sky. Might have felt like eternity. Our next journey drifts back farther still into the arid heat of the Roman Empire, to a tale not just of power, but of punishment, of gold, glory, and the weight of humiliation. Let's talk about Marcus Licinius Crassus, Rome's richest man, a senator, a general, and a man whose death was perhaps more symbolic than spectacular, but no less unforgettable. Crassus had it all: money, influence, and ambition that could smother a mountain. He bankrolled Rome itself, and in return, Rome gave him power, but power once more. Crassus wanted military glory, the kind that makes statues etches names into marble, and so he turned his eyes east. To Parthia. Big mistake. You see, Parthia wasn't Rome. Its warriors were fast, mobile, and deadly accurate with bow and arrow from horseback. Crassus, well, he brought infantry and overconfidence. The two armies clashed at Carrhae, and it wasn't a battle, it was a dismantling. Crassus watched his legions cut down by arrows that seemed to fall from the sky itself. Thousands of Roman soldiers scattered or slaughtered, and when he finally tried to negotiate a truce, the Parthians had one final message to send. They seized him, held him down, and according to ancient sources, they poured molten gold down his throat, a fiery, searing punishment. Not just for the man, but for what he symbolized: greed. It was cruel, it was theatrical, and it echoed a message to all empires. Even the richest man can't buy mercy at the end. And now, as you lie there in the quiet, imagine a Roman battlefield shrouded in dust, and one man, kneeling in defeat, swallowed not by swords, but by the very thing he worshipped most: gold ready for another. This one is colder, bleaker, and tangled with mystery. Meet Sigurd the Mighty, an Earl of Orkney, a Viking warrior. Sigurd lived in the 9th century, a time of axes, longships, and battles fought with blood and thunder. He conquered lands, defeated their foes, and in one such fight he beheaded an enemy chieftain named Emil Bricta. Now, here's where things get strange. Sigurd, perhaps feeling proud, or wanting to display his triumph, tied the head to his saddle as a trophy, a gruesome ornament. But during the long, bumpy ride home, the dead man's teeth, yes, teeth scraped against Sigurd's leg, just a scratch. But days later, the wound festered, turned black, and then infected. The great Viking warrior, who bested swords and storms, died of an infection caused by a corpse's bite. Poetic, isn't it? The very man he destroyed got the last laugh as oh. As you sink deeper into the quiet, imagine that lonely horse ride through a foggy Scottish plain. A victory turned curse. A warrior undone not by war, but by arrogance and a set of sharp, posthumous teeth. From kings who outsmarted poison, to warriors outwitted by teeth, to philosophers who laughed a little too hard. These stories remind us that even in death, history finds a way to be oddly beautiful. You're part of that same strange, wonderful story, still writing your pages. Now breathe in and exhale slowly. Let the past fade into quiet, and let the night carry you softly into sleep. Good night, dreamer. Until next time.